When did you last visit a hemophilia treatment center? The Hemophilia Treatment Center, or HTC, is a group of healthcare professionals that provide a comprehensive approach to your medical care through disease education and support programs for patients and families. They can also connect you to local bleeding disorder community groups. Between HTC visits, keep a health journal to record your treatment history. Include details such as prophylactic and on-demand infusions, bleeding episodes and triggers, any days of school or work missed, and any questions you may have. Finally, if your medical insurance has changed, speak with your insurance company to ensure coverage before your visit. Bring your health journal to HTC visits so you can inform your healthcare provider of your treatment status. Remember to inform them of any recent medical changes. Write down any instructions regarding prescribed treatments. Confirm your follow-up plan. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Taking these steps will help you get the most out of your visit. Let's make today brilliant. Prepare for your next HTC visit and get more information about managing your bleeding disorder at bleedingdisorders.com.
Hi, this is Jeremy Griffin. I'm the Executive Director of the New York City Hemophilia Chapter, and you guys have joined our fourth installment of the Financial Literacy Series. We have a wonderful guest today to join us, and before we get started with the guest, and I tell you a little bit about them, I just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, Pfizer, Takeda, CVS, and Genentech. Without their support, this could not be possible. It was really important to us when we were developing this program to recognize that these are challenging times economically, and oftentimes living with a chronic condition can be challenging in and of itself. Financial health for everybody can be tough, but add on to it that you have a chronic condition and it gets even harder. So it was very important to us to identify some tools and tips and tricks to help with that financial health. And when we found our next speaker, we thought, she's going to be perfect. Brianna Firestone is the founder of the School of Betty, a platform that empowers women through transformational money healing to create better relationships with their money, time, and energy so they can lessen stress, build financial freedom, and design a badass life they love. I was so impressed when I read that, and I thought, Brianna is exactly what we need. So I'm going to hand it over to Bri and let her share with you what she has to share today. Hi, Bri.
Hello. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Shall I just keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to have this opportunity. I'm very passionate about talking about money, specifically, how do we lessen stress around our money? How do we actually make it fun, where it's not something that's stressful? Because the reality is money is going to be in your life every day for the rest of your life. You cannot get around it. It knows where you live. And so I spend my days really helping individuals release that stress, reframe their thoughts and their emotions around their money so that we can actually get to the logical space and manage it in a way that works for us. So before I get started on what I want to teach and impart on you all today, I'll give you a quick elevator speech as to who I am. As Jeremy mentioned, I am the founder of the School of Betty. Betty was my grandmother's name, and she was a badass. And so I loved the idea of naming my company after her. But I got started in this money space because, y'all, I was a disaster with my money, like a total disaster in my 20s. And I remember very vividly getting my first credit card when I was 18 years old. And I did not know anything about credit cards, except the only thing I had heard was credit cards are bad. But that's about it. And I promptly went to the CD warehouse, everyone. I'm aging myself. And I spent $100 on CDs. I probably still have them because, you know, CDs are that one thing that we somehow can't seem to let go of, although I don't have a CD player. And you maybe are the same way. And I started my love affair with plastic credit cards and went to college. And by the time I was 23 years old. I had $30,000 of credit card debt. I was living in New York City, barely making $30,000 a year. And I also had $20,000 of student loan debt, which by today's standards doesn't seem like a lot. So here I was, $50,000 in debt and struggling living in New York City. And, growing up, I always told myself, I am not going to struggle with my money like I saw individuals in my life, adults in my life struggle with it. And here I was doing the exact same thing I said I wasn't going to do. But the reality was, I was only taught how to struggle with my money. That was the only experience I had with my money. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, I can be very stubborn. I have a lot of grit and willpower. It's like, I am paying this off. And I created a spreadsheet. Didn't really know what Excel was at that moment, but I figured it out. And I paid off all of that credit card debt in less than 3 years. Fast forward, I'm living in Denver. I'm not living on credit cards, but I'm not necessarily making my money work for me. So although I'm not in credit card debt, as I made more money, I just spent more money. And there was a pretty major financial situation in my life where I had to make an extreme decision. And one of those was like, I have to get a job that makes more money. And then the other decision I made was I am going to give up shopping for an entire year. Now, if you knew me at the time, everyone in my world was telling me, Bree, there is no way you were going to be able to do that because I was a professional shopper, y'all. When that movie Shopaholic came out, I was thinking, did they read my journal? Is this movie about me? And it was that year. So I said, I'm not going to buy shoes, clothes, handbags, anything I don't need. I can replace something. Obviously, I can buy groceries. This was really about things I didn't need. And it was really tough. I discovered a lot of things in that year, and it was the most profound year in my money journey because I recognized the connection between our emotions, our habits, and our behaviors and our money. And I realized that I wasn't shopping because I wanted these things. I was shopping because I didn't feel purpose in my life. I wasn't necessarily feeling joy and happiness. I was bored. Like I was using shopping as a vehicle to try to fill a gap. Pro tip, spoiler alert, it doesn't work. So in that year, I saved $20,000. I was able to donate to charities that were important to me, and it really changed my life. And from that moment, I would coach anyone who wanted to talk about their money, if they wanted a budget. And it was that moment that I was like, budgets are Band-Aids. If you don't understand what's underneath the shopping habit in the first place, a budget is going to be a Band-Aid. And so I kind of kept staying on my soapbox. And eventually 5 years ago, I created the School of Betty. And that is what I do full time. So this is when I call myself a money healer, it is because we are going underneath the layers around what is the catalyst for your spending in the first place. And once you understand that, my friends, it is really, really powerful. I became a certified life coach as well because money is not complicated, beautiful soul. Humans are complicated. And our money problems are life problems. And you all definitely probably feel that, right? There are other medical issues happening in your lives that are consuming a lot of your time and energy. And so if we can allow money to be a little bit more flowy, a little bit less stressful for you, that is really, really powerful. I am a financial contributor to Mind Body Green because I believe that taking care of your financial wellness is one of the biggest acts of self-care you can do for yourself. And so here we are, friends. Today, I want to talk to you about 5 money myths. There are many money myths, but I'm going to give you 5 that are really important. And I want to debunk these money myths because they are impacting your finances. They are impacting how you are navigating your money on a daily basis. And we want to change that. So myth number one, beautiful soul, money is bad or stressful. Now, most of us, when we grow up, we don't actually learn how to manage our money. We don't really learn the skill sets around managing our money. And if you did, huzzah, you are in the like tiny percentage of individuals that got that experience. Most of us learn really negative thoughts and emotions around our money. And I teach from a neuroscience base because when you can understand how your brain is operating around your habits and your behaviors and your emotions in your life, right? Your money is no different. It will allow you to alleviate some of the shame you might be holding or guilt you might be holding. I often hear my students say, I'm X amount of years old. I should know how to manage my money by now. And I always push back and say, should you? Like, did anyone actually sit you down and give you the skill set beyond you should live in a budget and you shouldn't rack up debt? Like, did anyone actually tell you how to do the thing? And if they did they talk about the emotions and the habits and the behaviors around it? Probably not, right? So many of us grow up thinking that money is stressful. And here is why that's really important to debunk. Number one, money's just a thing, y'all. It can't do anything unless you actually move it, right? And when it comes to our brains, we want to move towards pleasure and away from pain. So if you are saying money is stressful and money is bad, the odds of you wanting to lean into it, to manage it, to spend time with it are lower. Right? You might be in avoidance, and that might look like not wanting to look at your bank account, not wanting to open the credit card statement, right? You can be in this ignorance is bliss, avoidance is bliss, YOLO, right? And so we want to reframe that because we want money to feel really good. If money is something that's stressing you out, whether you're living paycheck to paycheck or you just don't feel safe, like you don't feel like you have enough, and managing a chronic illness, right? That is probably very real for you. We want to reframe money so that it starts to feel good, so that money actually starts to feel fun. Believe it or not, that's possible. And so one action you can take that's really powerful is understanding your money story. That's super important because when we are growing up, when our brains are developing, we go through five stages of our brain developing, right? So it's delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. And we spend most of our adult lives in beta. And what's really important for you to understand is by the time we're in alpha, which is complete around 9 years old, we're starting to bridge the space between subconscious and conscious, meaning you are starting to develop the skills to have thoughts and critical thinking, right? And in that time, by the time you're 9, you have already sponged up emotions, behaviors, habits around money. Because we're not born with beliefs, we are given beliefs, right? And so many of us have these hidden beliefs and emotions and feelings about our money that we have gained from our childhood that we haven't actually pushed back on. And what happens is those habits and those beliefs are what are operating your money as an adult. So I always ask my students, who is managing your money today? Is it adult you or 8 or 9-year-old you? And so a way we get to discover this is just write out all the things you remember about money from growing up. Phrases your parents or adults in your life said. Was it something like you always had a full pantry, or maybe you didn't have a full pantry? Do you remember payday? What was payday like? Did you get new clothes for Easter or another holiday? Did you go shopping before school? All of these things are culminating for you and are creating money stories for you. And there's no right or wrong, but they just are there. They are. So if we can write our stories out and then identify elements of stories or phrases that you're saying that are not serving you in your adult life, right? And it could be like money's stressful, rich people are stingy, money doesn't grow on trees, we can't afford that, right? So we have a lot of phrases that are attached to meaning, that are attached to emotions that we are carrying on through our adult lives. But what's so beautiful about our brains is we get to harness the power of neuroplasticity. We get to rewire those things for ourselves. And so if you can write your story and then identify the things that aren't serving you right now in your adult life, we get to rewrite it. So instead of money is stressful, we get to say money is joyful. Instead of I never have enough money, we get to say I always have enough money. And know this, you may not believe it in the first moment that you start to write this, but this is the process. And it can be very enlightening for you to just understand or pinpoint these moments in your life around your money, right? It's kind of like we've been carrying this really big suitcase with ourselves from the time we were babies until now in your adult life. And we get to open the suitcase and unpack it and then decide what we want to take with us moving forward. It could be all of it, could be none of it, could be a few things, right? So it's really empowering to understand your money story. And if you are managing money with a partner, guess what? You both have money stories and they are probably not the same. And so both of you doing this exercise and then coming together to have a conversation, that's really powerful. Okay, number 2 myth. Making more money is going to solve all of your problems. Oh man, I really wish this was true, everyone. This is what happens if you are in your career or you're starting to make money and you still find yourself in that paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, or you're still finding yourself in that space where you don't feel totally safe or totally flowy with your money. This is often why, because money will spend itself. You've probably experienced that, right? I always say managing $2,000 is no different than managing $200,000. So if you are in a space where you're, maybe you have shopping habits and you're racking up credit card debt, this is where, when we don't understand where we want to move our money and we don't understand our habits, it will put us in a financial pickle. This is where you might pay off debt and then all of a sudden find yourself a year or two later, you've racked up the credit card debt again, right? And that can feel not awesome. That can feel like you're never going to figure it out, right? And that's just not true. That's just not a true statement, right? So we get to reframe all of these things. And so one of the things that you can do that's really powerful is we want to make sure that we give our money a job. Your money loves to have a job. And one of the ways that we can start to do this, so yes, you're going to have, your expenses and just living expenses. But sometimes where we get into a pickle is when we have more money coming or we need to pay off debt, but we don't necessarily know how to do it yet, or we don't know where we want to put the money. And when we don't identify the job for the money, we will find a job for it, right? This is where you are randomly get a tax refund. And instead of really moving it in the space that you wanted to move it, you bought a hot tub or something, not to say that's bad. Maybe you planned on the hot tub and that's great. But I want you to understand a couple of things. Here are the actions for this. Number 1, know the values for your life. And I know this is going to feel very life coachy, but remember, money is as complicated humans are. And money is a tool that allows us to live a badass life, but we have to know the kind of life we want to live. And so knowing your values for your life is so, so important, because when you understand your values at any moment in time, you can look at your bank account, you can look at your spending, and you can ask yourself, is my spending in alignment with the values for my life? And it will be a very clear yes or no if you know your values. Now you can Google values list. Brene Brown has a very good one. And I challenge you to identify 3 to 5. No more than that. You will want to pick more, y'all, but go 3 to 5. And I also challenge you to pick the ones that actually resonate with you and not the ones you feel like you should list. right? There's no right or wrong, but so many of us can often live our lives in accordance to what we feel like we should be living our lives, right? So we want these to resonate for you. Again, if you have a partner, great exercise. Each of you bring your value list and then come together and have a discussion, right? So understand your values for your life. And number 2, know the vision for your life. What do you want? What kind of life do you want to live? Now, this is always the exercise that really trips up my students, because for so many individuals, especially if you identify as a woman, claiming what you want is not something we've been taught to do. And we've often been in this space where it's like, well, you should be grateful for these things and you shouldn't want more. And I want to impart on you, you bringing in more money into your life doesn't mean that someone else gets less of it. It's just not how it works, right? But I want you to understand the vision for your life. And if it's really hard for you to go out 5 years, go to a year. If that's too hard, do 6 months, do 3 months. I love to have a year and 5-year vision. And then I like to work in 90-day sprints, right? So that I'm focused for 90 days and I get to see the progress that I make. When you identify the vision for your life, we have a North Star for your money. Because here's the reality. What you want in your life may look very different than your best friend or family members, right? Your visions are going to be different. And so we can't look to the person next to us to guide us on how we need to flow our money, because they may be doing it in a different way because their vision's different. If you want to retire at 40 years old, or if you want to work until, you kick the bucket at your desk, your money moves are going to look very different. And there's no right or wrong to that vision. It gets to be what you want it to be. But we want to know the vision so that we can move the money to get us there. Because when we don't have the vision, it would be similar if you were about to go on a road trip and you estimated how long it would take to drive from Florida to New York City, right? You're estimating that you are starting in Florida and going to New York City. But the reality was you were actually starting in Florida and going to Missouri, because Missouri is the target. Missouri is the thing that you actually really wanted, right? So we have to understand where we are. We have to understand our current habits and behaviors now with our money, and we have to understand where we want to go. And then we get to fill in the gap. Then we get to create this really awesome roadmap and road trip, right? And so know your vision. Again, if you are sharing money and managing money with a partner, each of you do your vision and then come together and have a discussion. Because when it comes to money and partnerships, so much of the struggle is because you had different expectations around how you were going to move the money. And those expectations are greatly created because y'all had a different vision for your life, or what was going to happen next, or different priorities. And so if you come together and talk about money, you talk about your vision, it's less about the money and it's more about the vision. And then money's just a vehicle and a tool to help you get there. And so because money can be a really charged subject, because many of us don't have a neutral stance around it yet, that's a great way to enter into a conversation with your partner that is neutral. That's about where you want to go and less about the money. Okay, number 3 money myth. Ooh, this is a favorite one. Hold on to your pants. Debt is bad. Y'all, if I had a nickel. When we live with this idea that debt is bad, and let me just clarify this, for many it is credit card debt is bad. We carry so much shame and embarrassment. We carry so much baggage with it. And the reason why it's important to understand this and to let it go is because we have 3 resources in our lives. We have our money, we have our time, and we have our energy. Time is the one resource we cannot get back. Money and energy we can replenish. And no, you are never making a decision about one resource without consulting the other 2, right? And so when it comes to debt, when we have this idea that debt is bad, we will waste so much time and energy worrying about it, stressing out about it, feeling like we have done something wrong because we have debt. And the reality is you are where you are. If you can accept where you are right now, you get to release so much resistance and so much stress that you're carrying around the debt. I believe that debt, it's either costing you money or it's making you money, right? So, if you have credit card debt, high interest debt, that's costing you money because of the interest rate, right? But here's the thing, a mortgage is also costing you money. You're paying a lot of debt. And many of you are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for a mortgage. But because we have this belief that that's good debt, we don't worry about it. But we get to look at credit card debt that same way. Now, this isn't to say that we just get to YOLO and not pay attention to it, but we get to understand different interest rates and the different types of debt just require us to prioritize them differently. They're not good or bad. I will often invest in my business on my credit card for my business because that gives me a lot of travel points. It gives me kickbacks that I get to use in other parts of my life. So just like debt isn't bad, credit cards are not bad either, right? It's all about how you utilize it and how you use it. And so if you are in credit card debt, number one, know this, a lot of people are in debt. Most people are in debt, right? So we get to let that go. Number two, trust you did the best with the knowledge that you had at the moment, right? Number three, if you've racked up debt, recognize we get to understand habits and behaviors, and then we get to learn from that and move on, right? And we'll talk about that here in a second. And we get to let it be what it is. And then we get to take action. So much of the stress when it comes with our money is in the not knowing. So when it comes to credit card debt, so many individuals have a lot of stress because they don't know how long it will take them to pay off, or they don't know how much they can actually put towards their credit card debt. And because of this anxiety that we feel around debt, often what I see my students do is they will put, an extra $200 towards their debt that month. But what they didn't realize was that they didn't actually have the extra $200 to put towards the debt. And so because of the anxiety around the debt, they try to pay it off faster, but they just keep themselves in this paycheck to paycheck lifestyle instead of really understanding their numbers. So if you have credit card debt, I want you to understand this. Number one, we have to know what our money flow looks like. Money flow is AKA a budget. The reason why I don't call them budgets is because so many of us in our brains think budget equals restriction. And I don't believe in diet budgeting. I don't believe in diets. I believe in sustainable habits and sustainable change. And so I believe budgets are really money flows. They're meant to be flexible. Your money flow is rarely going to look the same month over month because #life, right? Life happens. But we want to have a really good understanding because when you understand how much money you have coming in and how much you have going out, it is going to give you ease. If you understand very clearly how much you have to put towards your debt, and let me tell you all, an extra $25 does more than you think, right? Do not discredit an amount like $25 towards your debt. It can significantly decrease the amount of time it will take you to pay it off. So know that, right? Tiny movements matter. When you feel confident that that $25 feels good and you know estimated time, how long it will take you to pay off that debt, guess what gets to happen? You get to release any of the anxiety you're feeling around that and you get to live your life. What a concept. You get to live your life. I do not believe that individuals have to strive to be debt-free. It is not how I operate. So many of us aren't debt-free because we might have a mortgage, right? If that's something you want, badass, you get to go for that. But do not put yourself in a high anxiety state because you are not debt-free, right? So on your money flow, understand how much money is coming in. Then I want you to understand 3 buckets. Number one, your fixed expenses, which means a requirement for your survival. So fixed does not equal they don't change. It means these are like required. My rent, so I can keep a roof over my head, groceries, my car insurance, my health insurance, all of those things, and know what that total is. Then I want you to understand your minimum debt payments. What are the total of your minimum debt payments? Now I'm saying minimum because 35% of your credit score is paying the minimum payment on time. Yes, we would like to pay more because interest is costing us. But when you can base your money flow off the minimums, you're going to get a more accurate picture of how much you actually have extra at the end of the month. And if you are in times of financial stress and you need to put extra money towards something else, a medical bill, give yourself grace to know that if you are paying the minimum on time, you're going to keep your credit score in a good place. Yes, it's costing you money, but that's okay, right? That's okay. We don't have to be perfect. And then the final bucket are your variable expenses. Those are the nice to haves. This is often the area we go to when we need to shave money down from our money flow or we need to make adjustments. So if you understand how much money you have coming in, and then you understand the totals around your fixed expenses, your minimum debt payments, and your variable payments, then you're going to add those expenses up and then subtract them from what is coming in. You're going to have a very clear picture about what you have extra to put towards your debt. That's where we get to start. And start with $10, start with $25, whatever feels good, and get in the habit of doing that. And I am telling you, try that for a month and you're going to feel very different, right? It's going to feel so much different. All right, number 4. Ooh, I love this one. Your shopping habits are all your fault. I get so many students coming to me, again, who are carrying a lot of shame. Y'all, that is a through line. If you have recognized it, shame and money are, they are BFFs, right? And we get to unwind that. We get to break up the team. We grew up in a world where we learned how to celebrate or soothe by often spending money. And, if you grew up in a Christian household and you celebrated Easter, I got a new dress for Easter, right? So sometimes these are also part of a religious holiday as well. And so you have to understand we're getting a ton of marketing messages, and we don't learn in school how to actually regulate our emotions. We don't learn in school how to identify our needs in a moment when our emotions are stirred up. We just don't, right? And so often what happens as we're growing older in our adult life, we just find coping mechanisms. And for most of us, it involves money. The coping mechanism is outside of ourselves and we're spending money. Now, the goal here is to not ever spend money or to never look outside of yourself to celebrate or to make yourself feel better. The goal is to know how to do it within your means, right? So I'm going to give you 2 exercises that you can do. The first exercise, just like how I talked about the vision, we have to know where we're going. We have to know where we're starting. So I want you to track your spending for 2 weeks. And I know that sounds bananas, and I don't mean bust out a giant notebook in Target unless you want to. It can be very lo-fi. But what I'm asking you to do is to become aware of your spending. I'm asking you to be more present, because over 90% of our daily lives are run on habit. And know this, your brain does not recognize if a habit is serving you well or not. This is why it can be so hard to create a new habit in your life, whether that's moving your body, whether that is being better about food planning, whatever it is. There's a reason why it's hard to move into that change, because your brain understands and recognizes patterns. And that's really great. Could you imagine having to think about all the things all day, like the things you need to do to get in the car, the things you have to do to brush your teeth or wash your face, right? Our brains just know these are the habits that we do. And so it serves us well, but it can also get us in trouble when we are trying to make change in our lives. So recognize that when you are in a space of trying to change either a shopping habit or your food or whatever it is, your brain is going to do everything in its power to keep you where you are, to keep you in your current habit. And so if you can understand that and recognize that, the moment you feel that resistance, the moment you are trying to talk yourself out of getting up and going for a walk, or choosing to eat the food you have in your house instead of ordering out at night, the minute you can recognize that of like, I don't want to do this, we get to say, oh, this is my brain keeping me where I am. Do I really want this new habit? We get to move forward, right? It's going to be uncomfortable for just a little bit, but you're going to feel the breakthrough. And so when we are tracking our spending habits, I want you to pay attention to a couple of things. What day of the week is it? What time of day is it? What store are you in, or what app are you on? What are you buying? And then this is the number one. So those are 5 things. This is the most important. How do you feel? I would love to tell you that our spending is highly logical, when in fact, beautiful soul, it is highly, highly emotional. And if we can understand our habits and our behaviors around our money now, we are equipped to create the new habit. But we have to understand where we're starting. So many individuals after 2 weeks recognize, by the time I get to Thursday, I do not want to cook and I am always ordering out. Great. You know what we get to do when we have that knowledge? We get to plan for eating out on Thursdays in our eating out budget. And we get to plan to not buy groceries for that Thursday, right? We get to package things in our life around our habits, or we get to create new habits. We get to serve ourselves, but we have to understand where we are first. And many individuals will recognize that so much of their shopping and how they handle money is similar to probably how they handle their food. And so individuals who understand the HALT method, which is, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? That is going to be very present often for your money, right? And so understanding that's how you're feeling and those are the moments, super powerful. And then the other exercise, so this is the second exercise I want you to do, is I want you to write a list of how would I celebrate at $0, $10, 15, 20, you get to go in whatever increments you want, up to as much as you want. And then I want you to create a second list that is, how do I soothe myself? How do I make myself feel better? How do I comfort myself at $0, $10, 25, right? So the goal is to not always just go within and make ourselves better and celebrate here. The goal is to achieve those things within our means, right? Try that. It's going to be a game changer, because the reality is when we're going to shop or we're going out to eat or doing these things, we are often doing it because we want to feel good in celebration, or we want to feel good because we want to help ourselves feel better. So let's know how we can do that at any budget level, right? Okay. Number 5 money myth, my friend. And this one's super, super important. There is a right and a wrong way to manage your money. Let me be the first to tell you if you have not heard this before, but there is no cookie cutter approach to managing your money. Yes, there are best practices. And what do best practices do? They help us, especially when it comes to money, they help us understand, how do I save money, or how do I do this faster? That's usually what they are, right? And so for all of my students, I want them to understand the best practices so that they can break the best practices to fit their lives. Just like your vision may be different for your life, right? How you want to live your life is probably going to look different. And I want to encourage you in this space is to really dive into what you want. And I know I've said that before, but we can get so caught up in how individuals around us are living that sometimes we don't recognize if we really want that thing or not. I'll give you an example. I was about to buy a new car, and I kept thinking in my entrepreneur journey, like, oh, I see all these entrepreneurs driving these fancy luxury little sports cars or SUVs. And I was like, oh, I should probably buy one of those, right? Like, do I want a little Mercedes or a BMW? And I kept looking, but I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like, I don't think I want this. And I had to sit with myself and ask, what is it about this that makes you feel like you should buy this thing, right? And it was totally from proving. Ooh, so many of our money actions are because we feel like we have to prove something. I have to prove to the world or show them that I'm a successful entrepreneur and I can afford this type of car. And then I'm like, well, do I? I want to feel like a badass in my car every day. And this is not the thing that's going to do it. And so then I asked myself, what do you really want? And I was like, well, I want a truck. If I'm going to spend this amount of money, I want to buy something I really love. And that's what I did. I bought a cherry red Toyota Tacoma, and I love this truck, y'all. So I want to encourage you to understand and know what you really want, and give yourself permission that your life gets to look the way you want it to look. I have students, when we do this exercise, when we do the vision, where they're like, well, I don't want to become a manager. I like my job. I like my 9-to-5 job. I get to go to the work and I get to leave it there, and I don't make a ton of money, but I really enjoy my life. And so I'm having a hard time with my vision. I'm just like, well, maybe you're living your perfect life now. That's okay. You don't have to have some razzle dazzle dream that's like super big and want to buy a private jet. Some of you may have that, and that's amazing. And some of you may not. So permission to live your life the way you want to live it. And when it comes to moving your money, you get to do it in a way that's an alignment for you, your vision, and your values. And so give yourself grace to live your life. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, right? So this doesn't mean be YOLO and don't, plan to take care of yourself in your older age. But I want you to understand that things are going to pop up. So you may be on a payoff journey for your debt, and then you may have a wedding coming up, and you may decide, I'm going to have to shift the extra money I have that I normally put towards my debt, and I'm only going to put 10% extra towards my debt, and I'm going to put the other 90% into this travel fund so I can go to this wedding. And then you go to the wedding, and then you get to shift again, right? So you get to flex and flow and move your money in priority with your life. That is the name of the game. So those are the 5 money myths. There are many more, y'all. I could keep talking about these for hours, but one of the things I want you to really understand and impart is that your net worth has nothing to do with your self-worth. The amount of money you have in your bank account has nothing to do with what an amazing, awesome human you are. And we have done a really great job in our world of tangling those two together when we just don't have to. So,
Bree, that was awesome. Thank you so much. It was
you're
amazing.
so welcome.
It was great having you here. Well, if folks want to learn more about you, can they go and check you out somewhere online or something?
Yes, please. So you can find me on my website. It's The School of Betty. That's Betty, not Buddy, as in Buddy the Elf. And again, also, I spend a lot of time on Instagram as well. They can find me at The School of Betty. I love to hear from my community and followers. So don't hesitate to send me a message and ask me a question.
So much of this stuff resonated with me. I have a pile of notes here afterwards, and I'm really excited about it. So I hope everyone at home enjoyed it too. And we hope to see you around again soon. Bree, thank you.
Thank you.